Far beyond the bright center of the galaxy, where the light of ancient stars grew thin and quiet, a long-forgotten border drifted in silence. The region was mapped, catalogued, and mostly ignored. Nothing important had ever happened there, and for the powerful civilizations of the Galactic Coalition, that was reason enough to stay away. The Coalition itself was old, older than most of the stars its younger members called home. It was built on careful order, shared knowledge, and a strong belief that chaos belonged only to the past. Wars had once burned across space, but those days were remembered as mistakes made by primitive species who had not yet learned wisdom. Now there were rules, councils, and patient diplomacy. Conflict, when it appeared, was ended quickly and cleanly. In the deepest layers of Coalition history, however, there were stories that did not fit this peaceful picture. They were not official records. They were fragments, broken signals, half-translated warnings, ancient logs copied so many times that truth and imagination had become impossible to separate. All of them spoke about the same thing, a species called humanity. Most historians treated the name as myth. According to the oldest fragments, humans had come from a small yellow star system on the far edge of a spiral arm. Their world was described as unstable, violent, and strangely beautiful. The species itself was said to be emotional, reckless, and endlessly determined. They fought wars even when defeat was certain. They protected strangers. They sacrificed themselves for ideas that could not be measured. None of it sounded reasonable. No surviving ruins clearly proved they had ever existed. No confirmed technology could be traced to them. The few artifacts that some collectors claimed were human had never been verified. Over time, serious scholars stopped discussing the subject at all. Teaching institutions quietly moved the records into cultural mythology, placing humanity beside dragons, star spirits, and other imaginative symbols created by young civilizations trying to explain a dangerous universe. The galaxy was safer believing humans had never been real. And so, for centuries, the name slowly faded into nothing more than a story told for entertainment, until the listening post was found. It began as a routine survey mission. A small Coalition exploration vessel drifted through the outer edge of an unimportant system, scanning for mineral value and navigational hazards. The star at the center was calm and ordinary. Several rocky planets circled at predictable distances. Frozen debris formed a distant cloud of ice and dust. There was no sign of intelligent life, at least not at first. One of the junior analysts noticed a faint energy reading that did not match natural patterns. It was weak, irregular, and almost lost in background radiation. Under normal circumstances, it would have been ignored, but boredom often makes careful workers curious. The analyst adjusted the sensors, filtered the noise, and focused on the signal. The energy spike appeared again, not random, not natural. Artificial. The discovery slowly changed the quiet mood of the ship. Officers gathered around displays, calculations were repeated. Instruments were recalibrated to remove the possibility of error. Each new test confirmed the same impossible conclusion. Something in that empty system was still producing power. The exploration vessel moved closer, careful and silent. As distance closed, the sensors revealed a small structure drifting in orbit around the system's third planet. It was dark, scarred by time, and built from materials far less advanced than modern Coalition engineering. Large sections looked damaged or incomplete. By every logical expectation, it should have been dead for thousands of years, yet a faint signal continued to pulse from within. The captain of the vessel felt a quiet unease he could not explain. Ancient technology was not unusual in deep space, but something about this structure felt different. It did not resemble the known designs of any recorded civilization. Its shape was simple, almost crude, but also strangely purposeful, as if built by beings who cared more about function than beauty. A salvage drone was sent to investigate. It approached slowly, scanning for traps, radiation, or hidden defenses. None appeared. The outer surface showed signs of extreme age, micro-meteor impacts, solar burns, long exposure to vacuum. A faded symbol was painted along one broken panel, though time had nearly erased it. The drone transmitted images back to the ship. No one recognized the symbol. Inside the structure, most systems were silent. Corridors were narrow. Walls were thick. Mechanical switches and physical wiring suggested a design philosophy far older than current technology. It felt less like a research station and more like a bunker waiting for danger that never came. Then the drone reached the central chamber. One console remained active. Its screen flickered with weak light, powered by an energy source that should have failed ages ago. Lines of unknown text appeared and disappeared in repeating cycles. The language was not part of Coalition archives, but the pattern suggested deliberate communication. The captain ordered a full translation attempt. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then the computer produced a partial result. Not a full message. Only fragments. But the fragments were enough. The words were simple, direct, clear in a way that crossed the barrier of time and language. If anyone receives this, we endured. This is Soul Command. Several officers froze at the final phrase. The ancient fragments, the forgotten myths, the impossible name, humanity. Before anyone could speak, the console's signal suddenly grew stronger, as if the system had been waiting for recognition. Power surged through dead circuits. Long, silent transmitters awakened. The station, quiet for ages, acted as though its true purpose had finally arrived. A new message began to broadcast. Not just inside the structure, across the entire system, into deep space itself. The exploration vessel detected the transmission instantly. It was narrow but incredibly focused, designed to travel vast distances without fading. Whoever built the station had not possessed advanced technology, yet they had understood persistence. The signal repeated again and again, patient as time. The translated message appeared slowly on the main display. This is Soul Command. We are coming. Stand by. No one on the ship moved. The words were calm. Not threatening. Not desperate. Certain. The silence that followed felt heavier than any battle alarm. Because myths did not send messages. Within hours, the discovery was transmitted to the nearest coalition relay. From there, it spread across dozens of systems, then hundreds. Scientific councils demanded verification. Military observers requested sensor data. Historians, many of whom had spent lifetimes dismissing humanity as fiction, suddenly found their work under urgent review. Debate filled every communication channel. Some argued it was a hoax created by an unknown species. Others claimed it was an automated signal with no living origin. A few whispered the possibility no one wanted to accept. What if the stories were true? What if humanity had never vanished? What if they had simply been waiting? Political leaders reacted with caution. Official statements avoided the word human. Fleets were quietly repositioned toward the outer regions of coalition space, described publicly as routine exercises. Research groups searched ancient archives for any forgotten reference that might explain the signal. The more they searched, the more uncomfortable the truth became. Too many fragments matched. Descriptions of a yellow star. Mentions of a system called Sol. Warnings about a species that survived when survival seemed impossible. Individually, the records were weak. Together, they formed a shadow of something real. Days passed, then weeks. The signal from the listening post never stopped. Always the same calm message. Always the same certainty. We are coming. Far away, beyond the range of coalition sensors, something moved in the dark between stars. Not fast enough to be easily seen. Not slow enough to be natural. Silent shapes traveled in careful formation, their paths guided by mathematics older than many civilizations. They had been traveling for a very long time. Toward home. Toward the signal. Toward a galaxy that had forgotten them. And as the first faint gravitational disturbances finally brushed the outer edges of Coalition detection networks, a realization began to spread. Slow, cold, and impossible to ignore. If humanity had truly survived, then the story of the galaxy was about to change forever. The message from the silent listening post continued to travel across the galaxy without rest. It did not change, did not weaken, and did not show any sign of failure. Day after day, cycle after cycle, the same calm words repeated through the dark between stars. "This is Sol Command. We are coming. Stand by." At first, many within the Galactic Coalition tried to treat the signal as a problem of science, not fear. Research stations studied its energy pattern, linguists examined its structure, engineers tried to understand how such an old device could still function with such perfect stability. Every answer only created more questions. The signal was simple, but it was also carefully designed. It avoided natural interference. It adjusted its strength over distance. It carried small timing markers that allowed precise tracking. Whoever built it had expected it to work for a very long time. That expectation disturbed the Coalition more than the words themselves, because only a patient species would build something meant to wait for centuries. Across Coalition space, political leaders gathered in long, quiet meetings. Publicly, they spoke of caution and observation. Privately, they spoke about defense. Old shipyards that had not produced war vessels in generations slowly returned to activity. Training programs were reopened. Border monitoring systems were upgraded. No official order for war was ever given, but preparation had already begun. Historians were pulled from universities and placed inside secure research centers. Their task was simple in theory and impossible in practice: discover the truth about humanity before humanity arrived. Ancient data crystals were re-examined. Dust-covered archives were translated again using modern tools. Fragments once ignored were now treated as critical evidence. Patterns slowly appeared. Many early spacefaring civilizations had recorded brief contact with an unknown species near the outer spiral arm. The descriptions were inconsistent in detail, but similar in feeling. The strangers were said to be physically fragile compared to other species, yet unusually determined. Their technology was not the most advanced, yet strangely practical. They asked many questions about survival, defense, and long-term endurance. And then, without clear reason, they disappeared from history. No confirmed record showed their extinction. No battle proved their defeat. They were simply gone. For centuries, the simplest explanation had been self-destruction. Many young civilizations destroyed themselves before reaching stability. It was a sad but common story. Assuming humanity had followed the same path required no further investigation, and so the galaxy had stopped looking. Now that choice felt like a mistake. While scholars searched the past, military observers watched the present. Long-range detection arrays were turned toward the empty dark beyond known space. At first, there was nothing unusual, only distant radiation, slow comets, and the quiet movement of gravity. Then a technician noticed a pattern. It was extremely faint, almost invisible inside background noise. A slight shift in gravitational readings. Too organized to be natural, yet too distant to identify. Independent stations confirmed the same disturbance from different angles. When the data was combined, a single conclusion formed. Something large was moving toward Coalition territory. Not one object. Many. And they were traveling in formation. The discovery did not reach the public. Information was restricted to the highest levels of command, where silence became heavier than panic. Predictions were calculated again and again. Travel speed, direction, estimated arrival time. The numbers were slow. Whoever was coming had been traveling for years already, perhaps much longer. Their movement showed no urgency, only certainty. It was the pace of travelers who knew exactly where they were going and believed nothing could stop them from arriving. That confidence created deep unease. Coalition fleets began to gather near the outer defensive lines, though the word defense was never used in official language. The ships themselves reflected centuries of peace. Smooth designs, elegant energy systems, weapons powerful but rarely tested. Their strength came from coordination and advanced control, not from experience in true war. Admirals studied the approaching data and felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty, because preparation built during peace is very different from preparation built during survival. Far beyond their sensors, the approaching vessels continued forward through darkness. They did not broadcast warnings. They did not hide. Their engines burned with steady discipline, conserving power across unimaginable distance. The formation shifted only when mathematics required efficiency. Every movement suggested long planning and careful purpose. Inside those ships, generations of humans lived and worked under artificial skies. Children learned history that began with loss and continued with endurance. They were taught that somewhere ahead existed a wider galaxy, either empty and waiting or filled with unknown life. Both possibilities required strength. Hope and caution grew together inside human culture, never separated. The oldest among them still remembered stories passed down from Earth, a world most of them had never seen with their own eyes. Blue oceans, open air, sunlight without metal walls. Those memories were protected like treasure, reminders of what survival was meant to protect. The signal from the ancient listening post reached them long before the coalition detected their movement. When the message was confirmed as genuine human design, silence filled every ship. Home had not vanished completely. Someone had endured long enough to call them back. Course calculations changed immediately. Travel speed increased within safe limits. Resources were carefully redirected. No celebration was allowed yet. Survival had taught humanity patience even in moments of joy. They would believe in home only when they could see it. Back within coalition space, the first clear sensor image finally appeared after weeks of observation. It showed distant engine light, small, steady, and impossible to mistake for natural objects. More images followed as resolution improved. Shapes formed slowly against the dark ships. Thousands of them. Not elegant like coalition vessels. Not massive like ancient war platforms, but numerous, ordered, determined. A long silence filled the central command chamber where the image was displayed. No one needed to say the word aloud. Every historian, every admiral, every political observer understood the same truth at the same moment. The myths had been wrong. Humanity was not a story about the past. Humanity was arriving in the present. Emergency councils formed across many worlds at once. Some leaders argued for immediate communication and peaceful greeting. Others demanded defensive positioning until intentions were clear. A few, guided by fear rather than logic, suggested striking first before the unknown force reached full strength. No decision felt safe, because the coalition realized something troubling. They knew almost nothing about the species approaching them. Time passed quickly now. Each day brought clearer images, stronger signals, closer distance. Human vessels began minor course adjustments that suggested awareness of coalition observation, yet still they sent no direct message. The silence felt deliberate rather than hostile. As the distance narrowed to the edge of recognized space, Coalition Command made a careful choice. A diplomatic transmission was prepared using universal mathematical language, the simplest greeting known to intelligent life. The message was sent toward the approaching fleet. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a reply appeared. Short, clear, calm in the same way as the ancient listening post. Signal received. Identity confirmed. We continue forward. No threat. No apology. Only certainty. The simplicity of the response created more tension than anger would have. It sounded like travelers announcing arrival, not invaders demanding surrender. Yet their numbers were large enough to challenge the balance of the entire galaxy. Coalition fleets moved into visible defensive formation, not attacking, only waiting. The human armada slowed as well, maintaining respectful distance. Two great forces faced each other across open space, silent except for distant engine light. History held its breath, because for the first time in centuries, the future of the galaxy would be decided not by memory or myth, but by meeting. The distance between the two fleets was vast, yet for everyone watching, it felt impossibly small. On one side waited the gathered strength of the Galactic Coalition, polished by centuries of peace and guided by careful law. On the other side drifted the human armada, shaped by long travel, quiet endurance, and memories older than most living stars they could see. Neither side moved to attack. Energy readings remained stable. Weapons stayed powered down, though ready. Communication channels stayed open, filled mostly with silence and careful observation. The moment stretched longer than any battle, because uncertainty weighed more heavily than danger. Coalition commanders studied the human ships in detail. The designs were not beautiful in the artistic sense, but they were purposeful. Every surface showed function before style. Thick armor plates overlapped in layers. External structures looked easy to repair or replace. Engine systems were divided into many smaller units instead of a single, powerful core. It was the kind of engineering created by a species that expected damage and planned to survive it. Even more surprising was the formation itself. Coalition fleets usually arranged ships for perfect efficiency, guided by central command systems that calculated ideal positions. The human fleet held formation too, but with small, irregular gaps and flexible spacing. At first it looked imperfect. Then analysts realized the truth. The gaps allowed movement if ships were lost. The spacing prevented chain destruction. The structure assumed battle before battle had begun. This was not a fleet built to win quickly. It was a fleet built to keep fighting. Inside Coalition command chambers, unease slowly grew. Their technology was still more advanced. Their weapons were still stronger in direct comparison, but strength measured on paper did not erase the quiet message hidden in human design. These travelers had prepared for the worst future imaginable, and survived long enough to reach this moment. Diplomatic channels remained open between the two sides. After long discussion, Coalition leadership sent a second message, more detailed than the first. It welcomed peaceful contact, requested identification of human intentions, and offered safe meeting conditions in neutral space. The reply came after a short delay. We acknowledge your message. Primary intention: return to origin system. Secondary intention: peaceful contact, defensive readiness maintained until safety confirmed. The tone was respectful, but firm. Humans were not asking permission to exist. They were simply stating what they would do. Debate spread quickly across Coalition worlds. Many citizens watched live transmissions of the distant standoff, trying to understand what kind of species could cross such darkness and still speak calmly at the edge of possible war. Some felt fear, others felt curiosity. A few felt something unexpected: admiration. Because survival on that scale required courage beyond imagination. While diplomacy continued, military analysts on both sides studied each other carefully. Coalition tacticians simulated thousands of battle scenarios, trying to predict human strategy if conflict began. The results were inconsistent. Human formations adapted too quickly in the models. Standard prediction systems failed to produce stable outcomes. On the human side, command officers reviewed Coalition behavior with equal care. They saw advanced coordination, powerful energy control, and precise discipline. It was clear the Coalition valued order and efficiency above all else. Human commanders understood something important from that observation. Order is strong in peace.
Order is strong in peace.
But survival is learned in chaos. No one wanted to test which philosophy would endure longer. Days passed with slow, careful communication. Small translation errors were corrected. Shared mathematical references grew into basic language bridges. For the first time in forgotten history, humans and the wider galaxy were truly speaking instead of guessing. During one exchange, a coalition representative asked a simple question that many had wondered but none had dared to send. Why did humanity prepare so completely for war? The answer took longer than usual. When it arrived, it was not a military explanation. It was a memory. Because for a long time, we believed we were alone. And alone means extinction can come without warning. Preparation was the only way to protect what remained. The word spread across coalition networks within minutes. Citizens read them in silence. Historians compared them with ancient fragments and felt old assumptions breaking apart. Humanity had not prepared for conquest. Humanity had prepared for loneliness. That truth changed the emotional weight of the entire encounter. Still, fear did not disappear completely. Large fleets facing each other in open space always carried risk. One mistake, one misunderstood signal, one moment of panic could ignite destruction neither side truly wanted. And then the mistake almost happened. A distant coalition sensor array detected sudden energy spikes inside the human formation. Automatic defense systems reacted instantly, interpreting the surge as possible weapon activation. Several coalition ships powered targeting systems in response, not firing but dangerously close. Inside the human fleet, warning alarms answered the same moment. Defensive shields strengthened. Engine output shifted for emergency movement. For a few terrible seconds, both sides stood at the edge of irreversible action. Communication officers rushed to send clarification signals before fear could move faster than reason. The explanation arrived just in time. A damaged human reactor had failed safely, releasing excess energy into space. Not an attack, not a trap, only an accident. Slowly, weapons powered down again. Targeting locks disappeared. Breath returned to thousands of beings who had not realized they were holding it. The near conflict left a lasting mark on everyone involved. It proved how fragile peace could be when history, fear, and uncertainty mixed together. But it also proved something else. Both sides had chosen restraint when destruction was only seconds away. Trust, small and fragile, began to grow. With tension easing slightly, a new proposal emerged. Instead of distant communication, a direct meeting between representatives could take place in carefully controlled, neutral space. No heavy weapons, limited escorts, full transparency of movement. After long review, both sides agreed. Preparation for the meeting moved slowly, with extreme care. Every detail was checked and rechecked. Translation systems were refined. Medical knowledge was shared to prevent biological risk. Security teams planned for danger while hoping none would appear. At the center of it all stood a simple truth that few dared to speak aloud. This would be the first meeting between humanity and the galaxy that had forgotten them. As the chosen vessels began moving toward the meeting point, observers across countless worlds watched in silence. Some felt they were witnessing the end of an age of isolation. Others feared it might be the beginning of a greater conflict. No one truly knew, but deep within the human fleet, older officers looked toward the distant stars ahead and felt something they had not allowed themselves to feel for generations. Not certainty, not safety, hope. And in coalition space, scholars studying the oldest fragments finally understood the mistake made long ago. The stories about humanity had never been warnings about danger. They had been warnings about misunderstanding a species that refused to give up. Now that species had returned, and the future of the galaxy was about to be written not by myth, but by choice.